countries are at my little girl's Cuba, number one exporter, sugar. All other countries have inferior sugar. Cuba, home of famous cigar. It started by capitalists all around the world. Cuba, Cuba, a very nice place. From hills of Guantanamo to southern Havana. Cuba, friend of all except America. They're very nosy people with gold up their ass. Cuba, industry best in world. We invented coffee and the shaving knife. Cuba, Cuba, you very nice place. From hills of Guantanamo to southern Havana. Congress, mighty penis of our leader. From junction with the testes, the tip of his face. Cuba, Cuba, you very nice place. From hills of Guantanamo to southern Havana. Congress, mighty penis of our leader. From junction with the testes to tip of his face. Cuba, Cuba, you very nice place. From hills of Guantanamo to southern Havana. Congress, mighty penis of our leader. From junction with the testes to tip of his face.
What up, y'all? How's it going out there? It's SocialLust. What up, what up, what up? Hello, 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 hello. Hello, hello. Audio check. Is the audio good? Is it good? Is it bad? Oh, now it's too high. Hello, audio. What up, y'all? How's it going? I hope that's good. I hope that's all right. I had some people complaining about my Joe Rogan video about the volume or whatever. We will see, though. We will see. Let me know. So let's start today with this lovely Sunday, 8/18/24. Let's start with Governor Tim Walz. Gives a pro tip for fixing parts and saving money on your vehicle. Let's zoom in. Should I put the reaction screen, guys? I kind of want to full screen this bad boy.
Hey everybody, Tim here. 11 days till the election, but it's my pro tip of the day out on the road. I got to show you this. This right here is the headlight harness on a 2014 Ford Edge. Ford, this is unacceptable. It burned out hot on the connector. So for $7.99 at Napa Auto Parts here in the city, you can replace this. Just clip off the back, use some shrink wrap connectors on there, tape it back together and put it back in. It's about a 5-minute fix and you're back on the road safe and sound. So pro tip of the day. Second one is get out and vote for One Minnesota. Get out and let's take this state in a direction we know it needs to go. Go vote.
Woo! That was awesome.
Hi, Minnesota. Governor Walz here, along with
Hope.
We're making sure we remind all of you hands-free driving starts on the 1st of August. We want to make sure our teen drivers are not texting and...
No. I think it's actually mostly bald men.
Cut. All right, once again, Minnesotans, we're here making sure millennials are putting down the phone. And
I think it's actually adults, Dad. Like older people like you.
Cut.
Hey guys, this is Hope Walz and I'm here with my dad, Governor Walz. And we're just here talking about the new hands-free law, and I'm just gonna show him how to prop his phone up so it's not in his hand and he can still see his navigation. All right, just like this.
Cut. Hey, Minnesota, Governor Tim Walz here. Governor Walz here trying to get rid of a child for anyone. On the 1st of August, Minnesota's new law is hands-free, making sure teens aren't Snapchatting.
I think it's everything, like texting, calling, like it's
YouTube.
all not just Snapchat, Dad.
All right, cut. One more time. Turn it down.
Why?
We're making a distracted driving video and you have the radio up too loud. Hey, Minnesota, Governor Walz here along with Hope, who listens to the radio too loudly. Well, it's a distracted driving video we're trying to make. Okay.
Wow.
Keep both hands on the wheel. phone out of sight, out of mind.
Good advice. You are ready for college.
Cut.
So make
Uh-oh.
sure when you get in your car,
Your hands free.
in states that have hands-free driving, we reduced fatalities and accidents by over 15%. We want to make sure that everybody gets home safely. Hope, any advice for Minnesotans?
What he said.
Yeah.
Not worth it, Minnesota. Put the phone down. It's the law of the land. More importantly, it's going to keep Minnesotans safe.
I'm glad I get to drive on the roads with this law in effect.
That's a cute ad. That's awesome. It's a really cool ad. He's so nice. He's such a sweet old man. I like this guy. So wholesome. That was that ad. Let's check this out. Governor Tim Walz at AFSCME. They're like a union, I think. Or something.
Wow. Well, hello, Los Angeles.
Hello.
Wow. Well, sisters and brothers, and ask me, first and foremost, to each and every one of you, thank you for the privilege of being able to stand with you, because I know that Ask Me stands with the American workers. Ask Me stands for all that's right.
Oh, yeah.
Let me acknowledge a few friends and the fighters who are here today with us. It goes without saying, thank you to my friend and your president, Lee Saunders. We were just talking earlier, we've done a few door knocks, we've done a few phone banks, we've done a few rallies, and we've worked together on a few laws to improve people's lives. I said, my friend, the important thing about this guy is, this guy's the friend to every American worker. So thank you, Mr. President. Madam Secretary Treasurer, thank you. Thank you for your leadership. The leadership team of Ask Me is there when we need them, always when they need them, making sure we not just win elections, but we understand you don't just win elections to bank political capital to win another election. You take that political capital and you burn it as fast as you can to improve people's lives. And that's what the leadership here does. To every delegate in this room, representing 1.4 million Ask Me members, thank you. Thank you for what you do. And as a dues-paying member of my teachers union for years, let me just say thank you again for having a fellow union member here. Vice President and I are just so grateful for the support you've given us. I'm proud to be on this ticking, working with Vice President Harris, who we all know we want to call the next President of the United States.
Oh, yeah.
Here's a little fact that they just told me. By the way, my week has been very interesting since last Tuesday, as you might guess. But here's a fact they shared with me as I came here to make this opportunity to say thank you. I happen to be the first union member on a presidential ticket since Ronald Reagan.
Oh, shit. Let's go. Guys, you guys got to remember, if you look back at the correlation of wages in our history in this country, the United States, back when the wages were the highest ever, and like people were making the most money, like regular Americans, middle class, it was when the unionization rate was the highest in this country. And that's when we were making the most money. After that, all these Republican presidents got in and they started lowering unionization. And that's when everything has been turning into shit, because we've been getting paid way less. Wages haven't been going up, less benefits, less safety. It's all been getting worse since unionization has been going down. So we got to unionize.
Rest assured, I won't lose my way.
Fuck, I lost all of them.
Probably should be a few more union members in elected office, President Saunders. We might want to work at that. I think I'm looking at
Gotta
some.
unionize.
So, you heard the story. You knew Vice President Harris grew up in a middle-class family, picked up shifts at that McDonald's.
Unionize!
I keep asking this to make a contrast
Unionize!
here. Can you simply picture Donald Trump working at a McDonald's trying to make a McFlurry or something?
No.
Oh, yeah, he knows us. He couldn't run that damn McFlurry machine if it cost him anything. So, but Vice President Harris took that work ethic, goes to work every single day to make sure families don't just get by, but they get ahead. She stood on the side of the American workers, and she stood up to the billionaires and fought corporate greed. She led this administration's work to eliminate the barriers to organizing. And let's not forget, she cast the tie-breaking vote on the American Rescue Plan to keep public service workers on the job during the pandemic.
Let's go. Mamala.
Just to be clear, the Vice President and I, we know exactly who built this country. It was nurses, it was teachers, and it was state and local government employees that built this nation.
Woo!
People in this room built the middle class.
Yeah, we did.
And it's not just a saying, it's a fact. When unions are strong, America's strong.
Yep. That's what I just told these people.
Vice President Harris and I have both had the privilege of joining workers on the picket line. And it's why, as governor, I signed one of the biggest packages of pro-worker policies in history into law. In Minnesota, we made it easier for workers to form unions. We strengthened workers' protections. And yes, we banned those damn captive audience meetings for good in Minnesota. Last time I said that at a union meeting, they sued me over it. It was the best thing to get sued over I ever said. We're going to continue to ban those meetings. But we did more than that for families and AFSCME workers that are there every single day. We did things to improve people's lives in a real fundamental way. We guaranteed free breakfast and lunch to every single child in Minnesota.
That's awesome.
That helped a whole lot of school employees, AFSCME members, keep their students engaged and keep them in the classroom learning. Today, Minnesota is one of the best states for workers in the country. I'm surrounded by some that aren't, so the Vice President's vision is to take those worker protections to every state in the union.
Woo!
Every state in the union. I keep saying this, I know you know it, but I think it keeps us focused. We all understand it in here. You've heard me say this. I know I'm preaching to the choir a little bit today, but the choir needs to sing. The choir needs to sing. And just so you know who's not in the choir, Donald Trump and J.D. Vance, they see the world very differently than we do.
Boo.
The only thing those two guys knows about working people is how to work to take advantage of them. That's what they know about it.
True.
Every single chance they've gotten, they've waged war on workers. And their ability to collectively bargain to take that away from them. All we're asking for is better wages, better benefits, better lives, and dignity in the work that we do.
True, true.
There's a great bill in Congress, should be the easiest vote you've ever taken, the PRO Act. Make it easier to form a union and bargain.
They don't want that.
Allow people to have the freedom to make a choice. Allow them to be able to do that. They also oppose the Public Service Freedom to Negotiate Act, which would require states to bargain with their employees.
Boo. Well, that's
Look,
good. That's good. Never mind.
If you're living in a state where you get to do those things, it's one thing. But our family and our neighbors and our fellow Americans are living in states where they don't have that. So when it comes to these so-called right-to-work laws that deprive us of the right to be able to form unions.
Yeah, the right to work laws are just laws that say you have the right to work for as least as possible. Like if there's jobs that don't pay nothing, those are the only jobs that can be around, basically. Like you have they don't have to pay you more, those jobs. They can pay you the least amount as possible, and that's their right to do that, and you're fucked. So the right to work is really stupid. The way they word it makes it sound like, oh, it's your right to work, but no, it's like your right to work at shitty jobs that pay nothing.
Fund what we need. Trump has said he supports right to work 100%. I saw our friend Sean Fain at the UAW had a name for that. He called him a scab, just to be clear. That's not name calling, it's an observation and fact, just to be clear. So,
True.
you know, you can tell a lot about people in their personal lives. He spent a decade stiffing service workers from dishwashers, waiters, and carpenters on his own properties to enrich himself. As
Wow.
president, he cut overtime benefits for millions of workers, and he opposed any effort to raise the minimum wage.
Come
That's
on.
all you need to know. You don't have to ask twice. We know who they are. A guy who goes to Mar-a-Lago, and this is a direct quote, he sits there and tells his friends, you're rich as hell and we're going to cut your taxes.
Yep.
I believe him when he says that. But he also turns around and tells workers their wages are too high. I keep bringing this up. Who do you know who's asking to cut taxes on billionaires while stiffing working people? I don't know anybody. And I'll tell you what, I think there's a lot of people think that they're on his side or voting for him, that when you put it to them like that, they start thinking things differently. This is where we need to talk to our neighbors. We need to engage. And I'll tell you, his running mate, I don't know if that was a value add to this campaign or not, but he's one of 4 senators, 4, that has never cast a vote on a pro-worker bill in his life.
Yep.
Not once.
Ever.
A stop clock's right twice a day. This guy can't get it right once. Not once for workers. And by the way, these guys are even attacking me for my record of service. And I just want to say, I'm proud to serve my country, and I always will be.
Woo! Fuck yeah.
With my dad's encouragement, a guy who served in the Army during the Korean War, I signed up for the Army National Guard 2 days after my 17th birthday. I served for the next 24 years for the same reason all my brothers and sisters in uniform do. We love this country. Then in 2005, I felt the call of duty again, this time of being service to my country in the halls of Congress. My students inspired me to run for that office, and I was proud to make it to Washington. I was a member of the Veterans Affairs Committee and a champion of our men and women in uniform. I'm going to say it again as clearly as I can. I am damn proud of my service to this country. And I firmly believe you should never denigrate another person's service record. To anyone brave enough to put on that uniform for our great country, including my opponent, I just have a few simple words. Thank you for your service and sacrifice. But look, it's not what they've done that we should be concerned with here today. It's what they're going to do. One of the clear goals of that Project 2025 to-do list is to put the screws to working people, making it harder for us to collectively bargain, allowing employers to drastically cut overtime or even eliminate it. And make no mistake about this, Donald Trump and J.D. Vance want to eliminate Ask Me and all public sector unions altogether. Hell, they're even going after the 40-hour work week.
Boo.
Someone was joking and said, what's next, child labor? Oh,
Yeah.
that's in there.
Yeah,
too,
they're
by the
doing
way.
that. Yep.
Reducing the rules around our children, putting them into dangerous jobs again.
Fucking weirdos.
The folks who came before us spilt blood and treasure and spent their lives working to give us dignity and safety in our workplace so you can simply do a good day's work and go home to your family safely at night.
Now these people want to
Project
fucking
2025
take that away from
will
us.
take all that away. It'll also repeal what you worked so hard for, the Affordable Care Act, and its protections against pre-existing conditions.
Come
And they've got
on.
Social Security and Medicare. I said this too. Look, I guess you can't blame them if you're billionaires. I don't know, but I'm guessing billionaires aren't waiting for their Social Security check to come in to get by.
No, they're not.
But I know people who are, like my mom, who depends on her entire retirement on Social Security benefits that she earned, by the way, and that we should have every expectation that we're not cutting taxes for the wealthiest.
No.
Why we
Tax
hurt the
them.
most vulnerable amongst
Tax
us.
them.
So be clear.
Fund that Social Security,
Trump's
yo.
playing dumb. Oh, I don't know about 2025. Some of you heard this say it, because I'm not ever closing the yearbook on this. I'm a football coach at heart. And I'll tell you one thing I know for sure is, if you're going to take the time to draw up a playbook, you're damn sure going to use it. So don't think that they're not going to use that playbook they drew up because they're going to. But I want to be clear. It's your neighbors, it's our friends that have been in this. I'm not talking about them. I'm talking about Trump, Vance, and this group that's around them. Because some of you in here with no or gray hair like me can remember when Republicans actually stood for and talked about freedom. We know they're there. We know those are our relatives. But it turns out that this guy means that freedom should be for the freedom of government to go into your exam room and tell you about your choices. You've heard me say it. This is not hard. In Minnesota, we respect our neighbors and we respect their personal choices. Now look.
Yep.
It's not difficult. I don't
mind their own fucking business.
Choices or make the same one.
Mind your own business, Jack.
But this country's great because we have a golden rule that makes things work.
We mind your own business.
We mind our
Jack.
own damn business. Why would you think I need your advice to tell me what books I can and cannot read, or when to have a family, or how to have a family, or what religion to worship?
Yeah.
Or how to organize? You stay in your lane and I'll stay in mine. That's not that difficult.
For real.
So be clear. You watch our next president as she comes out on stage and she comes out to a song about freedom. When she's talking about freedom, she means you're free to make your own healthcare decisions.
Mm-hmm.
You don't need us.
Yep.
You don't need us.
True.
And as a school teacher, I'll tell you what. Children should be free to go to school
without
worrying about being shot dead in their classrooms.
For real, man. I agree. I'm glad I'm out of school now with all those fucking shootings, bro.
Education should be a ticket to the middle class, not crippling student loan debt.
Mm-hmm.
Here's the thing. We don't have that long to go here. But think about the future that we can create. We know what the past is. We know what these guys are going to do because they wrote it for us. Convenient of them to write it in Project 2025, so we know that. That's not the future we want. We want the future, and here's exactly what Vice President Harris will do when she gets to the White House. As president, Vice President Harris said she will sign the PRO Act and the Public Service Freedom Negotiation Act right into law.
Let's go.
Done. We will stand together on the fundamental principle to collectively bargain for your own lives and your own jobs.
Oh, yeah. Let's go. Let's go.
And we believe in fairness. That's what we believe in. That's why corporations can start paying their fair share.
Yeah, motherfuckers. Just start paying your fair share. Stop price gouging.
What we did in Minnesota is lower taxes for the working folks, and we have the fairest tax system in the country, and things work out pretty well.
Woo!
We can protect Social Security. And something we did, and I want to thank, I know they're in here, my Minnesotans who are in the House.
Hey, Minnesotans.
It was AFSCME that put into place the most generous paid family and medical leave in the country in Minnesota.
Woo!
We're investing in our public schools, and it's, yeah, I'm a little biased on this one, but I think you're probably with me on this. How about we give our teachers a long overdue raise for the work that they do?
Yes! Pay our teachers all the money. Give them all the money in the world.
All right, I know you've heard these speeches, big order, optimistic or whatever. Well, I got to tell you, I will cop to being an eternal optimist. That's me. But I come by it honestly. I supervised the damn high school lunchroom for 20 years. You do not survive that job without being an optimist, I will guarantee you. And I also think you've heard me say this, hope is the most powerful word in the English language. It was so powerful for when my wife and I first had our first child, we named our daughter Hope. But my wife often reminds me, hope is a great word and a beautiful name, but it's not a damn plan. We can't hope that we defeat Donald Trump. We can't hope that we can collectively bargain.
Yep.
We can't hope we protect Social Security. We can't hope that we address climate change.
True.
You don't hope to win. You plan, prepare, and work to win.
True.
Look at this place. This place is filled with people who like hard work. These are people who get up and enjoy hard work and know how to get it done. So what do you think? A room full of 1.4 million ASPE members, and this room here, how many voters do you think we could turn out in an hour?
1 million.
How many friends can we bring to the polls?
1 million.
We got over 4,000 people in this room. We won states by less than 10,000 votes in some cases. And I don't know
true.
about you, and I know it. This is going to be a close, tough race. It is going to be a tough one. But if each of us does an extra shift, an extra hour, a little bit more,
Yep.
we get to wake up on that morning after the election and know that the work we did transformed the lives for millions, transformed generations,
True.
impacted the world. Ask me. That's how it happens. That's how it happens. That's a plan. That's
True,
how
true,
the hope
true.
turns into the reality, turns into improved lives. It's just like that. We organize, we donate,
Yeah.
we volunteer.
Yeah. Woo. Yeah. Let's do it
Look,
all.
I've been around you people. I know the jobs you do. I know what this president does because I thought you had to register to vote in Minnesota. You were out there so much for me because you were living there. You turn elections. You turn lives. You negotiate contracts. You press legislatures to do the right thing. We know how to do this. We've got 84 days to take control of our own destiny.
We got this.
84 damn days. And I've said this, you hear me say this.
We got this.
That's easy. We'll sleep when we're dead. We'll do the work now. We'll do the work now.
Let's do it.
And you do it for the most beautiful and selfless reason, because you believe in the very soul of your being that you believe in the promise of what America can be.
Yeah.
You believe we can all enter the middle class.
True.
You believe we can all have dignity.
True.
We believe we can all thrive. But you know what? We got to fight.
We do.
Because as the next president of the United States
Gotta fight,
says to me
y'all.
often, when we fight,
We win.
we win. When we fight,
We
When
win.
we fight,
We win.
Thank you, Ashley.
Oh no, music, music, music. Okay. That was awesome. When we fight, we win. Let's keep watching more Tim Walz stuff. We'll get to the Project 2025 stuff. After the Tim Walz, okay.
Project 2025, the authoritarian blueprint for dismantling federal agencies in the next Republican presidency, has a lot of thoughts on what your private relationships should look like and whom you should marry. In fact, a Christian nationalist vision of the family is a key centerpiece of the 922-page manual describing proposals for the American family as central to the next conservative president's agenda. Quote, every threat to family stability must be confronted. This resolve should color each of our policies. The Dobbs decision is just the beginning. We must replace woke nonsense with a healthy vision, starting with the American family.
Oh, God.
According to Project 2025, not all families are created equal. On page 451, it defines the right kind of family as being comprised of a
white
married
families.
mother, father, and their children. This, it claims, is the, quote, foundation of a well-ordered nation and a healthy society. Promoting this biblical concept of family is cited as a top 5 goal for a revamped Department of Health and Human Services, or a...
That's so creepy. Like, there's so many people that weren't married that I know that aren't married and have kids. Like, this is so stupid. This is basically telling those people you're fucking wrong. Your life is wrong. Fuck you. Like, it's not a good way to go down, guys. This whole Christian weirdo shit. Like, come on. Come on.
HHS, which it criticizes for, quote, having lost its way by promoting equity in everything we do. According to Project 2025, efforts at promoting diversity should be repealed and replaced with policies that support what it calls the formation of, quote, stable married nuclear families, end quote. In other words, the authors of Project 2025 believe that they, the government, should have the right to dictate what your family should look like, extending the arm of government into your home, into your bedroom.
Bitch, get out of
to
here.
enforce a Christian nationalist worldview. They consider this not just a policy preference, but a core function of governance itself. So much for limited government. It should be noted that traditional families, people who are married with children, no longer make up the majority of family compositions in the U.S., according to recent polling by the Pew Research Center. This shift in family structures is due in part to more same-sex couples adopting children or starting their own families, reflecting the diversity and evolving landscape of today's American society. That diversity, according to the authors of Project 2025, poses a danger to the, quote, very moral foundations of our society, end quote. The document lays out several proposals.
We gotta kill the gays. We gotta kill the LGBT and the trans. This is reminding me of the Nazi type stuff. Woo! This is reminding me of Nazi Germany when they killed trans people, gay people, communists, socialists, cripples. What's going on, America? Please learn your fucking history, guys. Please. Please, for God's sakes. Please.
For undermining the rights of the majority of these families who do not fit Project 2025's definition of family. For instance, it wants the government to protect the right of businesses to discriminate against same-sex couples. It says the federal grants should be made to faith-based groups that refuse to recognize same-sex marriage, specifically groups that, quote, affirm that marriage is between not just any two adults, but between one man and one unrelated woman, end quote. And while acknowledging that this would violate the Respective Marriage Act, which actually bans discrimination against same-sex couples, the document nonetheless calls for the government to, quote, protect faith-based grant recipients that maintain a biblically based social science reinforced definition of marriage and family.
So now they want to protect grants, money grants to places, universities, whatever, religious places. They want to protect religious grants that based on like fucking, yeah. They want to protect grants for religious people. That's it. They want to keep the money flowing for the religious fucks. Keep it going. Keep it going. Money, 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 money. Fucking charter school. Keep it going. Keep the grants going. Church program. Keep it going. PragerU. Keep it going. Like, everything else, no. Science, no. History, nah. Nah, unless it's pro-Christian history, then okay. Okay.
Not making this stuff up. This is actually in the 922-page document. Its policy proposals demonize children who are raised in non-traditional households. It states in Project 2025, social science reports that assess the outcomes for children raised in homes aside from a heterosexual intact marriage are clear. All other family forms involve higher levels of instability, financial stress, or poverty, or poorer behavioral, psychological, or educational outcomes. Federally funded family planning clinics would be required to actively promote, quote, the importance of marriage, which describes homes without a husband as being amongst the most dangerous places for a child to be. Amongst the most dangerous places for a child to be. Offensive and bigoted terminology is casually passed off throughout its pages, including urging the next Health and Human Services Secretary to put an end to, quote, woke transgender activism.
Woke.
One especially alarming proposal is to criminalize transgender identity as pornography.
Yep.
This proposal takes its cue from Russia's so-called gay propaganda bill.
Wow. Look at that. We're copying Russia. Of course we are. The fucking Republicans are copying Russia. It's funny how like pro-Russian they are. Like they're more. I'm not even as pro-Russian as they are, bro. Like the Soviet Union was kind of cool. That's all I think. I don't know about this whole Russia shit today. Russia's fucked up today. Like, leave gay people alone, bro.
Passed in 2022, which bans all forms of what it refers to as LGBTQ propaganda and prohibits Russians from promoting same-sex relationships. Similarly, Project 2025 considers the propagation of transgender ideology to be pornography. It mirrors similar rhetoric used by extremist groups such as Moms for Liberty to broadly oppose drag queen reading hours and to keep LGBTQ plus books out of libraries.
For real, ban the fascists,
Just
bro.
5 pages into the Project 2025 forward, the
Fucking
document
fascists.
states, quote, "The people who produce and distribute it should be imprisoned. Educators and public librarians who purvey it should be classed as registered sex offenders. Telecommunications and technology firms that facilitate its spread should be shuttered." So much for small government.
Wow.
It
Small
also
government.
classifies gender reassignment surgery as a form of child abuse. To confront these, what it calls threats to straight heterosexual couples, Project 2020
So what it transition is child abuse?
threats to straight heterosexual couples, Project 2025 produced surgery as a form of child.
So surgery for a trans person is child abuse, but cutting the fucking dick skin off of a child is not abuse. Cutting the foreskin off of a kid for a stupid, dumbass religious reason is not child abuse. But doing a medical surgery for a medical reason, a trans person, is child abuse. You see how these people think? Like, it's so fucking... They're hypocritical as fuck. I hate hypocrisy so much.
Child abuse. To confront these, what it calls threats to straight heterosexual couples, Project 2025 proposes economic incentives for traditional nuclear families, advocating for policymakers to, quote, use government power, including through the tax code, to restore the American family. By redirecting federal funding to support its biblical view, what it calls its biblical view of family, same-sex couples or other family structures would be denied equal benefits that are given to straight heterosexual couples. And the timeline for implementing all this is as soon as Trump takes office, which the document assumes is a given. Conservatives have just 2 years, it writes, and 1 shot to get this right. Time is running short. If we fail, the fight for the very idea of America may be lost.
Fuck their
The
idea
next
of
conservative
America,
president
yo.
will enter
Fuck
office
their
on
idea.
January 20th, 2025 with a simple choice: greatness or failure.
Well, y'all gonna fail.
This
Fuck you
very
guys.
idea of America seems to exude the vast majority of American families, exclude the vast majority
Bullshit.
of American families today, most of whom do not fit Project 2025's Christian nationalist mold.
These fucking weirdos. Fucking weirdos, bro, dude. That's just insane. Alright, we're gonna finish with that. Let's watch MAGA attempts to attack Tim Walz over his military service.
Can anyone tell me why MAGA treats veterans like garbage? The far right's doing a full-court press smear job attacking Tim Walz's 2 decades of military service, which is pretty wild considering who's on top of their ticket. You really want to talk shit about people's military records when you're kissing the ass of Captain Bone Spurs himself, Donald Trump? The guy who faked medical conditions to dodge the Vietnam draft 5 times? The guy who then mocked John McCain for getting captured and tortured as a POW for 5 years? The guy who called soldiers who died in World War II suckers and losers? The guy who said dodging STDs in the 90s was like his own personal Vietnam? The guy who was currently planning to gut the VA and funnel vets to private healthcare providers to save a buck as part of Project 2025, all while slashing the federal job force, 30% of which is made up of veterans. MAGA loves to use veterans as an easy prop, but it's about as genuine as Trump hugging a flag. They've done less than nothing to address the real problem veterans face, and now they're coming after a guy who spent 24 years in uniform. This is the same swift-boating they pulled in 2004 when a bunch of gleeful, hateful warmongers started wearing Purple Heart Band-Aids to mock John Kerry for getting shot and hit with shrapnel. It worked back then, but the world was a different place, and I really hope we're smart enough to see this bullshit for what it is. More disgusting MAGA disrespect for veterans.
It is bullshit. It is bullshit. Let's see what else we got. Isn't there like a majority report thing?
Hello, is this me?
This is you.
Hi. Rather not give my name.
That ain't it.
Let's do this, Jesse Ventura.
Yeah.
This would be great.
This is a great answer to this question or attack here.
DNC, call this man. Call this man. Have him introduce have him introduce Tim Walz at the DNC. It could be a funny way to like clap back at the Hulk Hogan lineup from the RNC.
In the pro wrestling business, this is what you would call generating heat.
Yeah.
Yes.
And no other way of generating heat would be more pronounced than Jesse Ventura responding to Hulk Hogan.
Let's
True.
go.
By introducing
Union
Tim Walz.
busting.
Who needs all these old presidents that still are alive for some reason because no one's died since LBJ on the Dem side? Let's get Ventura up there.
I would like to see it.
Governor Ventura, thank you so much for joining me this evening. I'm really eager to hear your take on this because you are a former Navy SEAL. You served in Vietnam. And I have to ask you what you think of this attack from the Trump van's ticket on Governor Walz's military service.
Well, Laura, I'll tell you what I think. I think it's shameful. I think it's shameful that a veteran would attack another veteran. Governor Walz served honorably for 24 years in the National Guard. After 20 years, you are eligible to retire at any time you deem necessary. They talk about him missing his deployment. Well, maybe Mr. Vance should ask the real question. What is the National Guard doing deploying to a foreign country in a foreign war?
True.
Well, let's go into history and figure out how that happened. That happened because George W. Bush and Dick Cheney went into the Iraq War based on lies, no weapons of mass destruction, no ties to Al-Qaeda, nothing with 9/11, and they ran out of bodies. They needed more bodies.
More bodies.
They couldn't implement a draft. That would be political suicide. So what George Bush did was sign an executive order sending the National Guard into foreign deployment. The National Guard is not for foreign deployment. Their name says what they do. They guard our nation from within.
Damn.
Love it.
Smackdown.
I mean, and I think I would be surprised if Ventura. I think he's a little bit playing the outside game.
He did endorse Walz, though.
He does. He'll stick up for Walz. But that is a great answer that you can get when you're really willing to go at the Iraq War too, and not just the don't be mean about a veteran. Like you can't just do the don't be mean about a veteran thing. You have to do both.
Trump ran in 2016 by criticizing Jeb Bush on the Iraq War and the Bush administration. J.D. Vance, I think, wrote about the Iraq War in a critical way as well, because now that it's all been settled and the war is widely unpopular at the end of the day, and people realize it was illegal and under false pretenses, then the Republicans say, oh, we're against it, of course, we're anti-war, we'll jump onto this.
It's a big fat mistake, he said.
Yes, but the entire infrastructure of the Republican Party at the time was behind it, and it would
wants
be
to do it in Iran right now.
I would love if they made that an instead of people valorizing George W. Bush because he passed Michelle Obama a piece of candy. I would love for there to actually be some, reminders for people about what the Republican Party stands for, and Ventura could tie that in. Ventura could tie that into the Vance endorsement in a way that I think would make Republicans uncomfortable.
High Five Pizza says, by the way, on Al Sharpton's MSNBC show, Ventura said Al should not hold his breath regarding him appearing at the DNC.
Exactly, yeah.
Right.
I mean, the Democrats are the Democrats still.
He doesn't want to, I know, but they would still be fun.
Hey, folks, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and check out our daily show. We do it every day at 12 p.m. Eastern for about 2.5 hours. We even take phone calls. You should check that out.
Yeah, I like his show. I watch it a lot. We basically saw what this is. It's the Jesse Ventura sharing his opinions on Tim Walz. Oh, I'll watch it for a bit.
When Vice President Kamala Harris picked Governor Tim Walz to be her running mate this week, he joined a long line of Minnesota politicians to achieve national fame, including vice presidents and presidential nominees Hubert Humphrey and Walter Mondale. Another politically prominent Minnesotan was Jesse Ventura, a former professional wrestler and Navy veteran who ran successfully for governor in 1998 on the Reform Party ticket. Former Governor Ventura joins us now. He is currently the spokesman for Jesse Ventura Farms. Thank you for coming on today, Governor. Let's start with this. You once held the same job as Governor Walz, and you followed his career. What are your impressions of him?
Well, first and foremost, let me say, Reverend Sharpton, it must have taken you and Jesus to get me back on MSNBC, because I never thought I'd be on this network ever again, and it took two people like you two, I think, to achieve that. But having said that, I'll tell you about Governor Walz, what I see about him. I'm a complete independent, and when he won his first election as governor, within 24 hours, he called me and set up a meeting with me to pick my brain. No other governor's ever done that, Republican or Democrat, but Tim Walz did. And what that showed me, Tim Walz is the kind of guy who's out for success, and he will reach across the aisle because he came to me, the ultra independent in Minnesota, to seek me out to get any information that would help him govern, and I happily did so. And I'll tell you what else he did. 20-some years ago, I tried to legalize cannabis marijuana. I lit the match. Well, the match simmered for 20 years and finally became a flame, and Governor Walz called me, and he said, Governor Ventura, you need to be in my office Monday at 11. I'm going to sign into law ending the prohibition of marijuana in Minnesota. It was your idea. You're still alive. You should be there to take credit for this because you're the one who done it. That's the kind of person Tim Walz is.
That's so cool.
Well, former President Trump's vice presidential pick, J.D. Vance, who is a former Marine, has led the Republican charge attacking Governor Walz over his 24 years of military service. Vance has accused Walz of stolen valor for leaving the National Guard in 2005 to run for Congress, just a few months before his unit was deployed to Iraq. As someone who understands how military service works, you definitely do, what's your response to this?
My response is this. First and foremost, any point after 20 years, you can retire when you want to. Second, Vance is missing the point. What he ought to be asking is this. Why is the National Guard being shipped out and fighting in foreign wars in other lands? That isn't their role. Their role is to be here in our nation, protecting us inside our own country. That's why they're called the National Guard. What happened was this. George Bush and Dick Cheney, when they started their folly with the Iraq War, they needed bodies. They couldn't bring back a draft. It would be political suicide. So what did they do? Bush signed an executive order now sending our National Guard over into world combat zones. That is ridiculous. That is for the regular military to be doing that. The Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines, not the National Guard. And besides that, Governor Walz already had 24 years in. He's an E9. An E9 doesn't go out on patrol. An E9 doesn't lead a demolition raid. E9s are the highest enlisted belonging to that particular unit. They come out with the commanding officer, and they have a rapport with the CO and the head enlisted. It's a relatively honor position more than it is any else. So Walz deploying and Vance is worried about that. I think Vance is doing a disservice to the United States Marine Corps because I know a lot of great Marines, and Marines show respect. That's the one thing you get out of a Marine is respect. And Vance ought to look in the mirror and behave like a Marine.
True. Ended. Start playing the Minecraft taking damage sound. Now to Tim Walz and his Cuba policy. Esta es la póliza que ayuda a Cuba del vicepresidente que Kamala Harris escogió.
one of the best Democrats in the country on foreign policy. So journalist Ida Chavez put together a thread of some of his foreign policy positions and explains, in the House, Walz played a significant role in pushing back against a new war in Syria during both of the major pushes for U.S. involvement in 2013 and 2016. He was also a strong voice in defending Congress's war powers.
That's good. We don't want war in Syria. We don't want war in fucking Iran and shit. These are all useless, dumb wars. We're just there for like no fucking reason.
Continues, Walz helped lead a larger group of House Democrats to urge Obama to not go to war in Syria, which was critical to undermining pressure that was building on Obama to wage a war he didn't want to fight. Walz co-sponsored all of the Yemen war powers resolutions and even co-sponsored a bill opposing the U.S.-backed coup in Honduras.
That's good. So Yemen
war powers
Yemen basically, okay, Saudi Arabia was basically doing a genocide in Yemen. They were massacring everybody with American weapons. So he tried to pass a bill that says like, yo, y'all got to stop doing this genocide over there. And then oh, I got to use the bathroom all of a sudden. And then what is this? Yeah, so a US backed coup in Honduras. So this is what I'm saying. The U.S. is always doing coups, guys. We're always doing coups and shit. We're always doing this. Please, believe me. We're always doing coups everywhere around the world. Cuba, Venezuela, Honduras, Chile, Iran. We're always doing it. So he actually wanted to, like, he opposed a bill to back this coup.
Resolutions and even co-sponsored a bill opposing the U.S.-backed coup in Honduras. When it comes to Cuba, Walz opposed aspects of Trump's policy, calling it short-sighted and misguided. He focused on opening markets for agricultural trade to benefit both Minnesota farmers and the Cuban people.
That is so good, guys. Tim Walz basically wanted to pass a law that lets the United States trade with Cuba, food or whatever else, normal stuff. That's good. That would lift the embargo. There's an embargo right now. They can't order shit from anywhere around the world. So food would be like the minimum. That'd be so good.
On top of that, he also supported the Iran deal in 2015, which was working until Trump got in office and ripped it up. So he's to the left of Obama and Biden on foreign policy. Now, that's all well and good, but the real question is, where does he stand on Israel-Palestine? Because that right now is very important for obvious reasons. Now, expectedly, he has been a longtime supporter of Israel, a strong supporter of Israel. I don't think anybody's going to be surprised by that. But he still differs from other Democrats in pretty significant ways. As human rights attorney Qasim Rashid points out, Tim Walz was one of the first politicians to call for an immediate ceasefire and release of all hostages. And when asked about the uncommitted movement, he did not condemn them or demonize them. Instead, he said they're civically engaged and should be listened to. So even on that issue, he's better than other Democrats.
Bro,
and
he's so
I want you to
good.
hear his full remarks about the uncommitted movement, because I think that what he says here has major policy implications.
Right now, 20% of the vote going to uncommitted, and we've seen that already in this primary in Michigan. What message are voters in your state trying to send to President Biden, and what do you want to see President Biden do in response?
Yeah, look, they're engaged. We're really proud in Minnesota. Civic responsibility. We have some of the highest voter turnouts. These are voters that are deeply concerned, as we all are. The situation in Gaza is intolerable. And I think trying to find a solution, a lasting two-state solution, certainly the president's move towards humanitarian aid and asking us to get to a ceasefire, that's what they're asking to be heard, and that's what they should be doing. We've gone through this before, and we know that now we make sure we've got 8 months. We start bringing these folks back in. We listen to what they're saying. That's a healthy thing that's happening here. But I would note that that the former president lost twice as many votes here in Minnesota to Nikki Haley. And I've seen some of these exit polls out of North Carolina and others. 80% of folks said they're not voting for him who voted for Nikki Haley. We'll get these folks back. I think it's take them seriously. Their message is clear that they think this is an intolerable situation and that we can do more.
Yep.
And I think the president's hearing that.
He actually said on national television that the uncommitted movement needs to be taken seriously.
For real. He's the best. Thank you, Mike Figueredo. Now let's watch this. It's about how the secret history of how Cuba helped end apartheid in South Africa. Now, if you don't know what apartheid is, apartheid is basically when a government is basically ruling over its people and mistreating them, and usually the government is not even of the same culture as the people. In South Africa, there were white motherfuckers. There were white people in the government in South Africa, and they were like treating their subjects, their civilians, like trash. The black ones, especially the Africans. And so they would treat them like trash. They will have something called bandustans, which were basically like little let me see if I can find a picture of bandustans. They were like little pockets of African towns, and everything else was like white people all around them. It was like oh, here it is. It's literally like what's happening in Gaza, in the West Bank. See these little pockets? These are the pockets of the African cultures of the towns that the Africans live in. Everything else is white motherfuckers area. Is the Afrikaner. That's what they were called, the Afrikaner. Fucking white people, dude. So they separated all these all these tribes and like people up, boop, 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 into like little fucking bandustans. Or let me see. It's kind of like this, guys. Look at this. Think about it like this. These are these are bandustans. This is in the West Bank. See these little pockets? Area B, Area A, Area C. It's bullshit. They're separating them, and they slowly steal the land. Slowly, little by little. That's what they were doing in South Africa. That was apartheid.
Tyrant. Raul Castro used... You're on democracynow.org, the War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman with Nermin Sheikh.
We turn now to the historic moment Tuesday when President Barack Obama shook hands with Cuban President Raul Castro as both men participated in a memorial service for anti-apartheid leader Nelson Mandela in South Africa. The White House said the handshake was unscripted. It marked the first time a U.S. president has shaken hands with a Cuban leader since 2000. In Washington, Republicans expressed outrage over the exchange. During a hearing in the House, Republican Representative Ileana Ross-Leitonen of Florida sparred with Secretary of State John Kerry, who said it did not represent any change in U.S. policy toward Cuba.
Mr. Secretary, sometimes a handshake is just a handshake, but when the leader of the free world shakes the bloody hand of a ruthless dictator like...
Bitch, shut the fuck up. You're probably shaking the hand of Saudi Arabian prince. You're fucking shaking the hand of like Middle East warlords and shit. Shut the fuck up.
Like Raul Castro, it becomes a propaganda coup for the tyrant.
Shut
Raul
the fuck
Castro
up.
uses that hand to sign the orders to repress and jail democracy advocates.
You literally fund warlords and shit around the world and like right-wing death squads and shit. Look at South America, Chile. You coup governments. You overthrow motherfuckers, install dictators, fucking worse ones than the ones they had before. If they even had a dictator before, you overthrew their guy. You put in fucking right-wing Nazi motherfuckers. Like, get out of here.
In fact, right now, as we speak,
all to protect capitalism and your capital.
Opposition leaders are being detained and they're being beaten while trying to commemorate today, which is International Human Rights Day. They will feel disheartened when they see these photos. Could you please tell the Cuban people living under that repressive regime that a handshake notwithstanding the U.S. policy toward the cruel and could you please tell the Cuban people living under that repressive regime that a handshake notwithstanding the U.S. policy toward the cruel and sadistic Cuban dictatorship has...
It's funny how all these stupid Republicans from Florida are so anti-Cuban. This bitch is probably a Cuban, that fled from Cuba. Like her family probably fled from Cuba because they were like slave owners or some shit. Slave owners or like sugar plantation owners or casino owners. This dumb bitch, bro.
Not weakened. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, today is about honoring Nelson Mandela.
Yeah. Who was friends with Fidel Castro? Nelson Mandela and Fidel Castro got along, right? We're friends, bro. We're all revolutionary friends, bro.
It's an international funeral with leaders from all over the world. He didn't choose who's there. They're there to honor Mandela. And we appreciate that people from all over the world and from all different beliefs and walks of life who appreciated Nelson Mandela and or were friends of his came to honor him. And I think, as the president said, I urge you to go read his speech, or if you didn't see it or haven't read it, because the president said in his speech today, honoring Nelson Mandela, he said, we urge leaders to honor Mandela's struggle for freedom by upholding the basic human rights of their
And would you say Raul Castro is upholding the basic human rights?
No, absolutely not.
The uproar over President Obama's handshake with
What?
President Raul Castro has drawn attention to the close relationship between the South African anti-apartheid movement and Cuba. In 1991,
America supported apartheid South Africa for the longest time. So did Israel. Israel and America supported apartheid South Africa. So they are fucking helping their people if they're fighting an apartheid government that's funded by America and Israel. What the fuck?
Nelson Mandela visited
I'm not
Cuba.
saying Raul Castro's a good guy, but he is kind of like, if he's fighting against America, and America is a shitty fascist, they push fascism and everything. Like, Benito Mussolini was a fascist piece of shit. We sold weapons to them. Like, and then right before Benito Mussolini lost to the revolution, America was like, okay, well, we don't like this guy. Oh, this guy's bad. We never supported him. No. Yes, you guys did. You guys stopped right before you fucking lost because you knew he was going to fucking lose.
With then President Fidel Castro. This is a clip when they first met.
Before we say anything,
Antes de hablar absolutamente de cualquier tema,
you must tell me when you are coming to South
me
Africa.
tiene que decir cuándo viene para Sudáfrica.
You see, no, just a moment.
No, un momentito. The sooner the better.
And we have had a visit from a wide variety of people.
Una gran cantidad de personas.
And our friend Cuba,
Y nuestro amigo Cuba,
which helped us in training our people,
que nos ayudó a entrenar a nuestra gente,
gave us resources to
que nos
get
dio
on with our
recursos,
struggle,
que nos ayudaron tanto en nuestra
trained
lucha,
our people
que
as
entrenó a nuestros
doctors and so
combatientes, a
on.
nuestros médicos.
You have not come to our country.
Cuba no ha venido a visitarnos, usted no ha ido a visitar.
When are you coming?
¿Cuándo viene?
No he visitado a mi patria surafricana.
I haven't visited my South African homeland
La
yet.
quiero como una patria.
I love it as a
Quiero por
homeland.
él y por el pueblo.
I love it as a homeland as I love you and the South African people.
Well, for more on Cuba's key role in the struggle to end apartheid in South Africa, we're joined now in Washington, D.C. by Piero Iglesias, professor of American Foreign Policy at the School of Advanced International Studies at Johns Hopkins University.
So Cuba helped South Africa fight apartheid, the apartheid government. So Cuba helped the revolutionaries there in South Africa to fight their oppressive government. And Cuba did that while the Soviet Union was telling them don't do it. Think about that. They were like, fuck you, Soviets. You don't tell us what to do. We're gonna go help our brothers. And they fucking helped their brothers, bro.
University. He uses
That's insane.
archival sources from the United States, South Africa, and Cuba to provide an unprecedented look at the history in his latest book, Visions of Freedom, Havana, Washington, Pretoria, and the Struggle for Southern Africa, 1976 to 91. You can read the book's prologue on our website at democracynow.org. Professor Iglesias, welcome to Democracy Now! Talk about this key relationship. Why Cuba was so seminal to the anti-apartheid movement?
Cuba is the only country in the world that sent its soldiers to confront the army of apartheid. and defeated the army of apartheid, the South African army,
Hoo, hoo.
twice.
Let's go!
In 1975, 1976, and in 1988. And in Havana, when he visited Havana in July 1991, I won't be able to repeat exactly the words of Nelson Mandela, but Nelson Mandela said the Cuban victory, referring to the Cuban victory over the South Africans.
Let's
in
go,
Angola in
Cubans!
1988, destroyed the myth of the invincibility of the white oppressor and inspired the fighting masses of South Africa. Quito Cuanavale, which is a victory of the Cubans in Angola, is the turning point in the liberation of our continent and of my people from the scourge of apartheid.
For a country that knows very little, Professor Gleeson, about the Cuban experience, its military intervention in Angola, can you step back for a moment and explain what President Castro, what Fidel Castro and these Cuban soldiers did?
Sure. In 1975, you have the decolonization of Angola. Portuguese colony slated to become independent on November 11, 1975. There is a civil war between three movements. One supported by the Cubans had supported it over the years in its struggle against the Portuguese. The other two supported by South Africa and the United States. And the movement supported by the Cubans, the MPLA, which is in power in Angola today, having won free election, was on the verge of winning the civil war. And it was on the verge of winning the civil war. I paraphrase from what the CIA station chief in Angola at the time told me, because it was the most committed movement with the best leaders, the best program. And in order to prevent their victory, the victory of the MPLA, in October 1975,
Hoorah!
urged by Washington,
Cuban power, boy.
And the South African troops advanced on Luanda, and they would have taken Luanda and crushed the MPLA if Fidel Castro had not decided to intervene.
Damn.
Between November 1975 and April 1976, 36,000 Cuban soldiers poured into Angola.
Let's
and
go.
Pushed the South Africans back into Namibia, which South Africa ruled at the time. And this had an immense psychological impact, talking of South Africa, in South Africa, both among whites and among blacks. And
Bro, South Africa got fucked up by the great mixed army of Cubans and South African revolutionaries. That's lit.
The major black South African newspaper, The World, wrote in an editorial in February 1976, at the moment in which the South African troops were still in Angola, but the Cubans were pushing them back. They had evacuated central Angola, they were in southern Angola, the writing was on the wall. In this newspaper, The World wrote, Black Africa is riding the crest of a wave generated by the Cuban victory in Angola. Black Africa is tasting the heady wine of the possibility of achieving total liberation. And Mandela wrote that he was in jail in 1975 when he learned about the arrival of the Cuban troops in Angola. And it was the first time then a country had come from another continent not to take something away, but to help Africans to achieve their freedom.
That's cool.
This was the first
That's awesome,
real
yo.
contribution of Cuba to the liberation of South Africa. It was the first time in living memory that the white giants, the army of apartheid, had been forced to retreat. And they had retreated because of a non-white army. And in a situation of internal colonialism, this is extremely important. And after that, the Cubans remained in Angola to protect Angola from the South African army. Even the CIA acknowledged that the Cubans were the guarantee
Wow, that's so
for
cool.
the independence of Angola. And in Angola, they trained the ANC, the African National Congress of Mandela. And very close relations developed between the two.
So like the great mixed army of Cubans and Angolan revolutionaries and guerrilla fighters basically defeated South African's army. They were trying to take over Angola. And then the Cubans were training the South African revolutionary forces in Angola. Damn, bro. Yo, I love my heritage.
I don't know if you want me to go on and
I
talk
love
about
my
the
heritage.
next moment, or you want to interrupt me with some questions.
Yes, Professor Piero Gliesses, if you could speak specifically about the role of Che Guevara in Africa.
Yeah, Che Guevara had nothing to do with South Africa.
In Africa, though, in the Congo?
Yes,
and
understands. The role of Che Guevara in 1964, 1965. In late 1964, Che Guevara was sent by Fidel Castro as Fidel Castro's top representative to sub-Saharan Africa. It was the first visit by a top Cuban leader to sub-Saharan Africa, because the Cubans believed that there was a revolutionary situation in Central Africa and they wanted to help. And Che Guevara established relations with a number of revolutionary movements. One of them, the MPLA, the Movement for the Liberation of Angola, that was based in Congo-Brazzaville. And in 1965, the first Cubans fought in Angolan territory together with the MPLA. But the major role played by Che Guevara is that he led a group of Cubans into Congo, the former Belgian Congo, where there was a revolt by the followers of the late Lumumba against the central government imposed by the United States. And the United States had created an army of white mercenaries, the White Giants, mainly South African Rhodesians and then Europeans, to crush this revolt. And the Cubans went at the request of the rebels, at the request of the government of Egypt, Algeria, and Tanzania to help the rebels.
Damn.
Yes?
Professor, I wanted to go back to Angola
Yes.
and this time bring in former U.S. Secretary of State Henry Kissinger. This is Kissinger explaining
Fuck
why
that guy.
the U.S. was concerned about the Cuban troops that
Henry
Fidel Castro
Kissinger.
had sent to fight in Angola. After Kissinger, you'll hear Fidel Castro himself.
We thought, with respect to Angola, that if the Soviet Union could intervene at such distances from areas that were far from the traditional Russian security concerns, and when Cuban forces could be introduced to distant trouble spots, and if the West could not find a counter to that then the whole international system could be destabilized.
It was a question of globalizing our struggle vis-à-vis the globalized pressures and harassment of the U.S.
Yup.
In this respect, it did not coincide with the Soviet viewpoint. We acted. But without their cooperation. Quite the opposite.
That was President Fidel Castro, and before that, Secretary of State Henry Kissinger from the film CIA Angolan Revolution. Professor Gliesses.
Okay, 2 points. One, Kissinger didn't mention that the Cubans intervened in response to the South African invasion and that the United States had connived with the South Africans and urged the South Africans to invade. So here there is a rather important issue of chronology.
He's not going to mention
The
that.
second point
He's a war
is that in
criminal.
the last volume of his memoirs, Kissinger, who in general is a very arrogant person, acknowledges that he made a mistake. And the mistake he made was in saying that the Cubans had intervened as proxies of the Soviet Union. And he writes in his memoirs that actually it had been a Cuban decision and that the Cubans had intervened and confronted the Soviets to the fait accompli. And then he asks a question in his memoirs. Why did Castro take this decision? And Kissinger answers is that Fidel Castro was probably, I'm quoting, was probably the most genuine revolutionary leader then in power. So there are two Kissingers, if you want. And there is the Kissinger of his memoirs, where he says a few things that actually are true.
Piero Iglesias, what do you make of the furor right now? You just heard Congressmember Leighton from Florida attacking John Kerry, you know, the significance of the handshake between President Obama and President Raul Castro right there at the Soweto Stadium at the memorial service for Nelson Mandela.
I think it's pathetic.
Yep.
And reflects the ethics of the United States and the policy of the United States. President Obama was received with applause in South Africa when he spoke, etc., because he's the first black president of the United States. But the role of the United States as a country, as a government, past governments, in the struggle for liberation of South Africa is a shameful role. In general, we were on the side of the apartheid government.
Mm-hmm.
And the role of Cuba is a splendid role in favor of the liberation. This handshake, going beyond this particular issue, the handshake was long overdue. The embargo is absurd, is immoral, and we have here a president who bowed to the king of South Africa, of Saudi Arabia, I'm sorry, which certainly is no democracy. I mean,
they're not. Saudi Arabia is a fucking insane.
It's an absurd situation. The problem with Obama is that his speeches are good, his gestures are good,
but he doesn't do shit.
But there is no follow-up.
Yeah.
So unfortunately, it's just a gesture, a long overdue gesture.
I hope Kamala Harris does better, man.
A shameful U.S. policy.
Professor Piero Iglesias, before we conclude, let's turn to Fidel Castro speaking in South Africa on his visit in 1998.
Conviértase Sudáfrica en modelo de un mundo futuro más justo y más humano.
Let South Africa be a model of a more just and more humane future.
You know what's crazy, guys? South Africa took Israel to international fucking court. Woo! So it seems like Cuba, I think Cuba is actually on the right side of history, guys. This is why I support Cuba so much, and I don't want to call it a fucking dictatorship, shitty ass. They're a democracy. They're maybe a little corrupt, but we can fix that. You know what I mean? America's fucking corrupt.
If you can do it, we will all be able to do it.
That was Fidel Castro speaking in 1998 in South Africa with former president who just passed away, Nelson Mandela, applauding him. Piero Iglesias, we just have a minute. Could you talk about what most surprised you in your research in the Cuban archives about this history?
Well, there are a lot of things. One is the independence of Cuban policy vis-à-vis the Soviet Union. There are clashes between Fidel Castro and Gorbachev. There are clashes between the leaders of the Cuban military mission in Angola and the Soviet leaders, which I quote textually in my book, and which make really fascinating reading. This is one thing. But another thing that impressed me very much is the respect with which the Cubans treated the Angolan government. This is very important because the Angolan government really depended on Cuba for its survival. The presence of the Cuban troops as a shield against South African invasion, which was a constant threat. And the very large and generous technical assistance that Cuba was providing to Angola. And the tendency would be to treat a government that's so dependent with some kind of superiority. And this is something I've never found in international relations. this kind of respect with which Cuba treated what, by all objective counts, should have been a client government. And it's particularly striking for someone who studies the United States and lives in the United States, because certainly the United States government does not treat government that depends on Washington with much respect.
Piero Galesis, thank you so much for being with us, Professor
My
of American
pleasure.
Foreign Policy at SACE, the School of Advanced International Studies at Johns Hopkins University. We will post the prologue of your book on our website. The book is just out. It's called Visions of Freedom, Havana, Washington, Pretoria, and the Struggle for Southern Africa, 1976 to 1991. Just
Bro,
published by University of North Carolina.
I gotta buy that shit. I gotta buy that book. So that was that. Let's see what else we got. Africa is in our blood and our culture. Cuban minister listening to fight apartheid in Angola. Ooh.
Something about you that many people don't know is that you actually volunteered in Angola. I'm curious, what was it about the struggle against apartheid that inspired so many Cubans to go fight against it?
It's because, in my opinion, I think Cubans were colonized. The Spaniards went to Cuba and enslaved the natives and, murdered motherfuckers, raped people, raided villages, you know what I mean? Enslaved people, made plantations, took our basically made profit off of us. And we revolted. we revolted. We had a revolution, multiple revolutions. And I think that is in the Cuban blood. And we see that shit around the world. We see other people suffering, and we're like, nah, we gotta go help.
I remember when Katrina hurricane beaten New Orleans and other regions, this tragic situation. And a government saying, run, evacuate yourself. And seeing this painful abyss between rich people and poor people in New Orleans, and immediately we make a call to the Cuban medical personnel, and we received thousands of volunteers, and we made an offer to the U.S. government to dispatch medical personnel to New Orleans. The governor accepted, the mayor of the city accepted, but the federal government refused to do.
Oh my God!
So it was very altruistic, because we never mix politics or political issues with the humanitarian affairs, and it was the beginning of this special medical force called Henry Reeve, honoring an American youth fighting in our independence wars. And we are Latin American, African people. It's in our blood.
True. That's true.
It's in our culture.
True.
We inherited from Spain and
the natives.
From Africa.
Yeah.
And we saw it also in New Orleans, or
the slaves that came,
the
trade, and
on these countries and other, this crossroad of cultures. And we feel as sons and daughters of Africa, and we feel committed out there. We have no a racial approach because of our history. The Cuba's nation has a peculiarity of the very idea of national identity, of the Cuban identity, and as an independent nation was born at the same time and in a blood connection with the ideal of abolition of slavery. And the founding fathers called and call them compatriots, and call rich, illustrated, first Cubans, owners of sugarcane plantations,
See, I mentioned that.
mills, and slave dotation.
Yep.
Very poor Cuban workers, Spanish descent, almost in slavery conditions, paying with the food, and call Africans and African defense, and call all of them fellow citizens, compatriots, and invited them to fight a war for the national independence and for the abolition of the slavery. It's in the roots of our national essence. We received an emotional solidarity by African countries, and we were involved because of these profound cultural connections in their independence struggle against colonialism and against the crime of apartheid. I'll never forget the complicity of some Western governments, even the U.S. government,
Apartheid,
calling that this complicity a constructive engagement with the supremacist, racist South African white regime.
Mm-hmm.
And we felt as a duty to be part, to make a humble contribution to this struggle. And in fact, more than 300,000 Cubans participated in the struggle against the apartheid only in Angola. Never be involved in internal affairs or internal conflict in Angola, only defending their borders against the apartheid. And in our Ministry of Foreign Affairs, many officials had this experience as a young officer. In my delegation currently, Cosillo is one of them. 3 of us participated personally. Our ambassador to the United Nations.
Wow.
And for this reason, we feel that the struggle against racism and against racial discrimination is fundamental. And the attempt to use these issues as a political threat against South countries or against Cuba, for instance, is a painful. It's the same as I just pointed out about manipulation of a really important human causes. In the first independence wars, African descent and Africans, free slave, fought in a decisive contribution to our national independence, but they were the infantry. But in the Second War, many generals were African descent, and it was a very, very important result of our independent process to have a different vision on races. But during the first half of our 20th century, the new colonial republic, kidnapped by American interests, imposed an amendment to our constitutions, was a setback. And during the 50s in Cuba, there was a terrible racism and racial discrimination. Separated institutions, clubs, even towns in which no a black person, no a mulatto person could walk freely. But the Cuban Revolution changed that.
Damn,
By
I didn't know that.
And by social conquers by social policies, creating equal opportunities, or even compensating structural historical inequalities with additional opportunities.
Thanks for watching, everyone. If you want to see more progressive anti-imperialist content like this, make sure...
That was lit. The fall of America. 5 years ago. Look at it. Look at this shit. The Majority Report.
So this is some archival footage of Nelson Mandela meeting with Fidel Castro. This is Mandela traveling to Cuba. This is shortly after he's been released from Robben Island. And he is meeting Castro because, again, part of the full reality of Castro's legacy is that he is was a staunch opponent of racism and colonialism across the globe, and he fought on behalf of the anti-apartheid struggle.
Man, God bless Michael Brooks, dude.
And in this clip, first Harry Belafonte is being interviewed and sort of sets some of the context. Then we have Castro, which I guess I'll have to translate for people listening. Sorry. I'll be fine? Okay, and then we have Mandela meeting Castro. The visuals on this are fascinating, and all of it is worth listening to. It's very relevant history.
Had it not been for the Cuban presence in Africa, and in particular in Angola, the history of Africa would have never been what it is now. One of the greatest friends that Cuba has is Nelson Mandela and his appreciation for what the Cuban people did and Fidel Castro. But I think if you don't understand that history, then you'll never really understand the enormous success and the importance of the Cuban Revolution.
Well, my president.
Pause it. This is Mandela in a room receiving Castro, and Mandela saying, my president, my president. Go ahead.
President, my brother.
How are you?
My brother.
Please.
Aw.
Very nice to see you.
Están contentos de verlo.
Please sit down.
Están contentos. Por favor, venga bien sentarse.
Please sit down.
Siéntese.
Now, one thing before we say anything.
Una cosa antes de hablar, nada.
Before we say anything.
Antes de hablar absolutamente de cualquier tema,
you must tell me when you are coming to South
me
Africa.
tiene que decir cuándo viene para Sudáfrica.
You see, no, just a moment.
No. Un momento. The sooner the better.
And we have had a visit from a wide variety of people.
Una gran cantidad de personas.
And our friend Cuba,
Y nuestro amigo Cuba,
which helped us in training our people,
que nos ayudó a entrenar a nuestra gente,
gave us resources to get on with our struggle,
que nos ayudaron tanto en nuestra
trained
lucha,
our people
que
as
entrenó a nuestros
doctors and so
combatientes, a
on.
nuestros médicos.
You have not come to our country.
Cuba no ha ido a visitarnos, usted no ha ido a visitar.
When are you coming?
¿Cuándo viene? No he visitado a mi patria surafricana. I haven't visited my South African homeland. La quiero como una patria. I love it as a homeland. Y por el pueblo.
I
love it as a homeland as I love you and the
When
South African
are
people.
you coming to South
Pero
Africa?
¿cuándo viene a South
Pause it.
Africa?
Mandela really not fucking around here. Time to go to South Africa. Go ahead.
Va a tener que ser hoy mismo. I think it will have to be today. I will have to fly back with you.
No, you are very soon.
You are leaving at 10, so we are catching the plane together.
Soon afterwards, Fidel did go to South Africa
Oh,
and
that's
on his way
awesome.
stop off in Namibia, where he was greeted by Sam Nujoma, the nation's leader.
Hey.
So this is a real reflection, again, of the full picture of Castro. And if you want to have a full integrated conversation, we don't ignore, of course, he violated human rights in Cuba. Of course, he had dictatorial tendencies. Of course, he was involved in many things that should be and rightly criticized. But he also was, in reality, a heroic figure for many people and did many incredible things. While Ronald Reagan was propping the apartheid regime in the 1980s, Fidel Castro was fighting it. That's the full legacy. Now, there is another Mandela figure who had thoughts on Fidel, and I'll just channel him for one moment. One thing that I will say for Fidel is that he was not a cock.
Oh, God.
It's very unusual for a leftist. As a matter of fact, he was the one in Cuba doing the cucking.
Oh, God.
He told me that if you were a revolutionary leader, you could grab girls by the whatever.
Oh, no.
Then he told me that he is automatically attracted to beautiful peasant girls. So he was an interesting guy. He used to wash his mouth out with rum because he automatically started kissing collectivists.
Hey, it's Sam Cedar. Why don't you subscribe to this channel? You can do so right over here.
Oh, man. That's crazy. I didn't know Cuba tried to send medics to help in the flood of New Orleans, and America was like, nah, you guys are communists. No, we don't need your communist help. Those communist hands. So stupid, bro. We're so hateful. Like, we're so hateful in this country. And it's all from misinformation. Or you're just a fucking racist or a fascist or a Nazi or a white supremacist or a Christian nationalist. I don't even know. Um, 2 minutes. Hey! Dance, dance, dance.
Great founders of the Cuban nation is his presence himself. Comrade Fidel, ladies and gentlemen, our country has
Hey, he
joined
looks
many
ripped.
in the international
He looks
community,
fit.
including the Pope John Paul II, in calling for the immediate lifting of the embargo imposed by the United States of America on Cuba.
Oh, but I was told there wasn't an embargo from uneducated people.
We believe, as our President Nelson Mandela does, and has said in the past, that every country has the right to decide the political and economic system of his own choice. And to those who survived the apartheid brutality,
Ya les dije
I told you already
cuando viajaban qué buscaban.
that when they come to your countries, you know what they are looking for.
Conflictos en el Congo, en la República.
Now there are those conflicts in Congo.
¿Por qué?
Why?
¿Y por qué murió un día Lumumba?
And why did Lumumba died one
¿Por
day?
qué fue asesinado?
Why was he murdered?
¿Por qué?
He was murdered because he wanted to defend his country. And because Congo had lots of gold and lots of diamonds and lots of platinum and lots of resources.
That's true. South Africa is very full of minerals. Damn, yo, Fidel's based. I don't like him for the bad stuff he did, but there's some good stuff, guys. I'm telling you.
Darnos por vencido. Renunciar.
Let's look up Cuban doctor. Cuba always be sending out their doctors, bro, to help motherfuckers, because they have a good healthcare knowledge. Yeah, bro, Cuban doctors are always being sent out. It's so cool. It's like instead of military, they're sending people out to help. It's like the coolest shit ever, dude. Like, lift the embargo now, man. All right, guys. I think it's going to be the end of the stream. I appreciate you guys chilling with me. Really appreciate that. If you guys ever want to check out my merch, I have merch. Just made this cup over here. The tank mug. Yeah, or I have a Patreon. Come check out my Patreon if you guys ever want to check that out. It's in the description. But I appreciate you guys for watching. Have a good weekend. Bye-bye.